Hi there guys, so I'm here to do a little presentation on speech for the IELTS. I'm going to be doing these IELTS classes and then trying to make a really short, quick video to sum up what we did in the class and to go over it for people who missed the class. So let's get into it. This is all about dispelling the myths for the speech assessment. The first one here, if your accent isn't clear, you'll lose marks. This isn't true. There's actually 4 parts to how they mark the speech assessment. There's fluency, grammar, punctuation, pronunciation, and what we call lexicon or vocabulary. Now, none of those relate to accent. The only thing that your accent can affect is pronunciation. So, and the way it affects your pronunciation is if you speak too quickly. So I'll just give you an example of that. If I speak really quickly like this and I just keep talking like this really fast, it's really hard for you to follow what I'm saying. If you slow down a little bit, then you'll find that your accent won't actually affect what you're saying and you'll be clearer. So your accent doesn't really affect your mark. If you don't use big words, you can't achieve a high score. This is completely untrue as well. If you have a good range of smaller words, for example, if you know the words huge, big, large, great, or greater, bigger, larger, like if you know how to use those words flexibly in different situations, that's okay. You don't need to know 4 and 5 syllable words to be able to get your 8s and your 9s. It's more about flexibility across the tenses and in different situations using the correct language. So using the correct tense with the word happen. Something happened, something is happening, and something will happen. So being able to use all 3 parts of that word, something happened, ed, and then happening, ing, and happen without anything on the end. That's much better than saying it happening, it did happen, it will happen is okay, but it is happen, not good. It did happen is okay, or if you could abbreviate that to it happened, it would also be okay. So you don't need big words to achieve your high score. If you don't talk a lot, you're not showing good speaking skills. It's not true. If your answer is small, direct, and answers the question clearly in 4 or 5 sentences, that's fine. And a big part of speaking is actually listening. So if you listen really closely to the question, you'll be able to answer it more succinctly. So succinctly means short and really precise, which is fine. That's actually what they look for. It shows it will show very good lexicon if you are able to describe your answer very quickly, and it will show good fluency. If you ask someone to repeat or rephrase a question or ask what they mean, that'll make you look stupid and in turn lose marks. If you ask for clarification on a question, like if the question is, tell me about your family, and you say, do you mean my immediate family or my extended family? That's perfectly fine. Where do people in your country like to travel to? Do you mean travel by car or travel on a plane for a holiday? Do you mean travel for a holiday or travel for business? If you're asking for clarification because you're unsure of what sort of answer the person wants, that's absolutely fine. Better to do that than to talk for a minute about something that they didn't want as an answer. If you repeat yourself or use similar vocabulary all the time, you're not showing flexibility. This is true up to a point. If you feel your vocabulary is very small and inflexible, then yeah, it could be a problem. But most of the time, you will use very similar vocabulary in your speech, and you have to actually intentionally try and push that wide. You have to try and learn new words and use them, intentionally use them. So the example I gave in the class was ginormous. When we were talking about huge and big and great, I was saying, what about throwing the word ginormous in there, or humongous, or gigantic? So like all these words, sure, you might know them, but making sure that you intentionally use them when you get the chance to is how you actually extend that. And most of the time, if you're telling a story about something that's happened in your life, you're going to repeat who the person represents, whether it's their name or if they're a friend or a brother, you're going to keep repeating that. My brother did this, and he did that, and then my brother and me went to that, and then I actually saw my sister as well. Like, the story is going to involve very similar vocabulary. So if you want to push your vocabulary, you need to do it intentionally, but repeating similar vocabulary is not necessarily the worst thing. Knowing how to use the vocabulary that you have across the tenses is more important, and having flexibility, than having a big vocabulary that you don't know how to use properly. If I talk negatively about my work, study, or interest, that'll reflect poorly on me as a person. Not true. It'll show balance. If you say, I love my work, but sometimes this guy I work with, Brad, is, he can be a bit annoying, or he can be a bit unorganized, and that it frustrates me when people aren't organized, you're showing balance. You're showing a little bit more of depth in your question, in your answer, rather than just saying you love everything all the time. So that last one is something that comes up a lot, and it's about being able to test out positive and negative language. It'll actually spread your vocabulary instead of trying to be positive all the time. I'm not saying be negative all the time, because that's just as bad as being positive all the time. It's lacking balance. So if you do have some negative things to say, make them constructive. That's the only thing about that one. Some things you can do to improve. Stop speaking your first language for the last 2 weeks before your assessment unless necessary. So if you're talking to family back home, when you learn your first language, if you've spoken it up to the point where you're about sort of 7 or 8 years old, research says that you won't lose that language. My dad had a 30-year break from speaking Italian when he came to Australia, and when he decided to go back to Italy, he had broken Italian for about 2 weeks before he was speaking Italian more fluently than he was speaking English again. So you'll never lose that first language. He went for 30 years without his Italian. You can go 2 weeks without your Mandarin or your Malay or your Tamil or your Sinhalese or your Japanese or Cantonese, whatever your first language might be, and come back to it afterwards. Meditate. I can't stress this enough, sort of a bit ironic, but meditation will reduce stress and it will increase memory function. There's this great exercise I've got called Curtain Kriya that I'm going to put up with this presentation. And I'm also going to run some sessions on this at the end of class so that people get used to this meditation. It takes 12 minutes and it's a smaller version of a Buddhist meditation that has helped me a lot. I do it 3 to 4 times a week and it really helps me with memory retention, remembering what I've got to do tomorrow, what's due at the end of the week. It's fantastic. Last one. Look at preparation materials on websites. I think everyone does that and checks out all the practice exams that are out there, but I'll put a list of websites up as well. Practice being the interviewer and the student in front of the mirror. Give yourself a topic card and try and record yourself speaking. Bring it to me for analysis. Take it to your friends. Ask them what they think. Ask yourself the general questions that they ask. There's so much information about what's in this assessment online that you should look it up, ask yourself the question, and try and not prepare your answers word for word, but get a feel for what the answer is going to sound like and what sort of language you're going to use. And the last one, if grammar is your worry and you want to really focus in on being perfect with your grammar, articles, and the absence of those two words, and also prepositions like to, between, on, in, with, all those sorts of words, they're the ones that get all second language speakers. Research proves it. So look at those two things and look at activities around those two things if that's what you want to focus on. I've put a few activities up here and I'll let you go through them on your own. The instructions are all there. There's topic cards here for the first activity. And the second activity, I'll just quickly show you a random word generator that will really help you with that. So here at Text Fixer, so all I did was type in random word generator, and it's the second hit from Google. And you basically generate 2 random words and try and make a sentence. I can't make a sentence out of that one. That's pretty difficult. Apparently, my wallet has gone missing. you can see that that ape has had a belly full of that other ape. Every day I try to eat solids. My breath smells a little bit grim. So try and create sentences from this random word generator and try and make it about yourself or about an experience you've had. So that's the second activity there. And these are some things you can do at home. There's all the links to the activities there. Keep a vocal diary. Talk for 2 to 3 minutes about your day. What did you do? How did you feel? Who did you see? Did you sleep well? Eat well? Got anything planned for the next day? Answer these questions in a daily diary and get used to reflecting, because a lot of the speech assessment is about reflecting on your past. So yeah, get used to that and try that out. Read out the sample answers of IELTS speech assessments online into a voice-to-text app like Google Docs, and test your pronunciation and punctuation. But that's about it for today. I'll put this up on Facebook, on the student web, and on my blog. So on the student web, it'll be inside International Academic and Language Skills. If that's not in your student web, contact me on t.shoal@boxhill.edu.au so that I can enrol you. It'll be on my little blog spot here, which is intsupportbhi.blogspot.com.au. And I'll put the link to this up on Facebook and in student web. And I'll also put it on the Facebook page and on my Facebook page as well. So look forward to seeing you on Friday or possibly next Wednesday when we go through the speaking assessment. I go through the reading assessment, and tactics for that one. And I'll talk to you soon.